development is nature-based, and therefore investment in tourism has multiplier effect as well in other sectors. So when we talk about Tourism Connect, and I'm connecting to the subject matter today, it is not only about connecting physically and virtually to have live chats on very important subjects, but it's also about how tourism connects to rural development, jobs, livelihoods, energy development, agriculture value chains, and overall social and economic development. I'm glad we had some of the conversation this past weeks, and today we are going to talk about infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me use the opportunity to also sincerely thank the government of Uganda for the tremendous efforts and leadership in promoting the tourism industry. Prior to COVID-19, for the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, tourism was Uganda's leading foreign exchange earner, contributing 5.6% of GDP, employing over 500,000 people, many of whom are youth, women, and vulnerable communities working in the informal economy, the Juakalis, and contributing to an equivalent of 16.6% of total exports in 2019. The pandemic has, however, hit the tourism industry hardest. A study conducted by us in the United Nations family, of which UNDP provided the technical leadership, really projected that our beautiful country is going to register a loss of about 5 billion over the next 5-year period between 2021 and 2025 due to the pandemic. Whilst COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately affected Uganda's tourism industry, it has also afforded us an opportunity to rethink the future of tourism sector, including how it can further contribute to the attainment of our Vision 2040, the third National Development Plan, and the Sustainable Development Goals. As the country promotes domestic tourism and opens up to international tourism traffic, it is imperative that we take stock of the infrastructure network in place to support the rebuilding of a greener, more resilient and inclusive, competitive tourism industry. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Uganda has made substantial progress on its infrastructure agenda in recent years and is poised to continue investing in increasing the stock and quality of strategic infrastructure to accelerate the country's competitiveness as indicated in the third National Development Plan. The country's stock of paved roads now stands at over 5,000 kilometers. Total installed electricity generation capacity is now 1,200 megawatts, while electricity transmission grid infrastructure totals 2,258 kilometers. The country has revived its national airline. Uganda Airlines is expanding Entebbe International Airport to increase capacity and improve passenger facilities, and these investments are laying a solid foundation to propel the country's development agenda. To consolidate these positive gains and to build on them, the country needs to continue to develop strategic infrastructure to harness the potential of its tourism resources for its development. It will also require that we address some of the following. First, the quantity and quality of tourism infrastructure, which is defined as a range of goods and services necessary to meet the needs of tourists and increase satisfaction during their stay at a destination. This is especially important in rural areas to help impact on the competitiveness of the country as a tourism destination. And I think a few moments ago, I was talking to the executive director of the Uganda Hotel Association, and we're talking about the need to position the country moving forward. We also need to look at the stock of the country's paved roads, particularly in the rural areas, in order to ease traffic flows between or to key tourism development areas such as the Kidepo Valley National Park. And for those who have traveled many national parks in the region, including the Mara, they say Kidepo is perhaps the finest in the region. This is coupled with the development of alternative means of transport, such as by water, air, and rail, as well as adequate purpose-built rest stops to facilitate the competitiveness of Uganda as a tourism destination. Third, ensuring a comprehensive, well-maintained infrastructure network, including the provision of adequate tap water network, electricity grid infrastructure, and information and communication technology. And I'm glad our colleagues in NITA, you are here to also talk about the subject. This will really reduce the cost of doing business, especially for upcountry tourism operators. And while Uganda just relaunched its national airline, there is still a very limited number of direct flights to the country, thus making the international transport cost more expensive in comparison to the region's comparators. So again, this is where we need to be able to look at strategic partnerships with other airlines. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, given the significant contribution of tourism to Uganda's economy, investing in quality, resilient, and sustainable tourism infrastructure is crucial for the development of this expanding industry. It is the basis for utilization of existing destination resources and driving tourism development. To this end, I wish to propose the following key actions for consideration by the government, the private sector, development partners, and all those of us in the tourism fraternity. First, prioritize the upgrading and paving of strategic roads which provide important access to key tourism sites. This will provide faster and more comfortable vehicular route to tourist attraction sites. As mentioned earlier, the development of road transport network should integrate purpose-built rest stops, for example. Second, there are a significant number of existing airstrips in Uganda, including those that are close to or within some of the key protected areas that form tourism attractions within the country. It is therefore important to consider the upgrading of these domestic airfields, such as Kihihi, Kisoro, Pakuba, Kidepo, and Kasese, to facilitate and create a competitive market for the provision of frequent and a wider range of domestic air services. Third, water transport offers potential linkages that could connect between different tourism areas and form part of the tourism circuit. We therefore must improve water-based services within Uganda and to tourism sites through identifying and mapping all navigable water bodies, harnessing the potential for water-based tourism activities and tourist circuits, improving on frequency, quality, and speed of passenger and vehicular ferry services, as well as making water transport attractive for private investment. Fourth, it is important to know that Uganda's railway routing ran close to several national parks, including Murchison Falls, Queen Elizabeth, and Mount Elgon National Parks. This offers an opportunity for the line to form part of a more integrated and multimodal tourist movement network around Uganda. Thus, investments in railroad transport must be stepped up too. Fifth, encourage the use of renewable sources of energy as it is consistent with the natural qualities of the parks. Even if on-grid power is available, the use of renewable energy as part of the power supply strategy for development should be considered where appropriate. So, for example, we're talking, the use of solar, waste to energy, biogas digesters, and many of these other energy sources. Finally, digitalization is expected to continue propelling the travel experience on its trajectory towards becoming more seamless, frictionless, and high quality in a way that contributes to the sustainable development goals. I therefore urge us all to promote the use of technologies, including the internet, location-based services, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, in order to make Uganda's tourism offer more attractive, efficient, inclusive, and economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable. So again, if somebody wants to come to a country, they should be able to find those services where you can purchase your ticket online, make your e-payments online, things like that, that would facilitate us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to know that competitiveness relies on far more than just infrastructure. We also must continue to invest in improving the business environment, addressing safety and security concerns, reducing travel barriers, and protecting natural assets which attract a significant number of visitors internationally. We must ensure stronger partnerships amongst key ministries, departments, and agencies. So, for example, if you take the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Ministry of Water and Environment, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, there needs to be stronger partnerships. So, for example, when the Ministry of Energy is developing energy resources, it's connected, for example, to tourism. We must leverage the opportunities that the third National Development Plan offers for us through the programmatic approach where we can all work together. As I conclude, I call upon each and every one of us to reflect on how to harness the power of tourism to Uganda's sustainable development agenda. I call upon us all to reflect on how we can build forward better and harness the power of tourism to generate the quality of jobs for durable growth, reduce poverty, and offer incentives for environmental conservation, a triple win to help Uganda transition towards a more inclusive, professional, and resilient economy. I reiterate the United Nations Development Programme and the United Nations Family Commitment to support the government and the people of Uganda to realize the national development aspiration, including through tourism. Together, we can truly make our beloved country the Pearl of Africa. It is indeed one of the most beautiful countries in the world, if not the most beautiful country in the world. Yesterday, we flagged off our own brother, Joshua Cheptegei, to the beautiful snow-capped Rwenzori Mountain for a mountaineering expedition which he is leading. Next, it will be Kidepu. Next, it will be Pian Upe. Next, it will be Bwindi. Next, it will be our beautiful lakes. Such is the beauty of our country. Such is the beauty of our beloved Pearl of Africa. And I just want to reiterate what our brother said earlier on at the beginning, where he talked about the need to promote domestic tourism. During this festive period, I encourage all of us to really go and visit one of the beautiful places in our beautiful country. Welcome to Uganda, and thank you very much.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Elsie. I have had my own private conversations with Elsie. I have never found anyone who's so passionate about this beautiful country, and yet she's only visited about 1% of it. And if that's what she says after seeing 1% of this beautiful country, not so long ago she had a trip for the World Tourism Day celebrations in Fort Portal, and she says in her drive-by to go to Fort Portal, she saw 3 crater lakes. She says there's nowhere else in the world on a 3 or 4 hour journey you'll see 3 crater lakes, and you don't even have time to go see them, but you can see them on your way by. That is how beautiful this country is, without even getting out of your car. And so I want to thank you, Elsie, first of all, for your dedicated support to the tourism sector, and also the love of this country. Thank you. I know the day you leave, you will be our permanent ambassador. Unfortunately, we will not be able to afford you, but we will be happy to continue retweeting your messages and information. I want to quickly move into our panel discussion and invite our panelists. One of our panelists, the Executive Director, Nita Yu, will be leaving us very quickly, so I want to invite all of them. So I'll invite, of course, I've started with the Executive Director, Nita Yu. Hatwib Mugasa, please come, take a seat, feel free, take any of the seats. Also invite Eva Good Jagwe, the Director of Strategy and Innovation, Uganda Bankers Association, please take a seat. Invite my brother Adolfo Sayers Alonso, Finance and Agribusiness Manager, EU Delegation. And also Engineer Isaac Wani, the Director, Network Planning and Engineering at the Uganda National Roads Authority. As I mentioned, this is about tourism infrastructure. And so even with the introduction, I'm wondering, some of you are wondering, what does the Bankers Association have to do with tourism infrastructure? If you didn't listen to Elsie did do my homework for me, and she mentioned digitization and availability of e-payments, and that's why Eva is here. So the conversation is complete. I want to begin with you, Hatwib, because I want to get as much out of you before you leave. Elsie spoke to the same, and I'll start at the end where she spoke about digitization. A lot of our tourists, when they come here, and because it should be a good thing for us, they want to share what they have seen as quickly as possible with the millions and thousands of people that follow them. And we need to ride on that. And so we were wondering, how much is NITA doing to ensure that we actually have the necessary infrastructure in place to enable those tourists share their conversation as much as possible?
Thank you, Maurice.
The microphone, please switch it on. Yes. Are we good? Is it on? Is it on there? I'll just check.
Can you hear me now? Thank you, Maurice. You will allow me to take my mask off. I believe the distance is...
You're secured there.
So I'd like to thank the Tourism Fraternity and UNDP for the invitation and Uganda Tourism Board. It's true, Uganda is the most beautiful country in the world. I'll give an example. I was talking to one of my professors in the US who had visited Uganda, and he told me that, did you know that Uganda is second to the US in the variety of bird species? And I did know that. And he was the one telling me that. And that is because we have a disconnect in the information, in the way that we disseminate our information. Most of the information about Uganda is in our spoken word, in media print, and a bit is digitized, but it's disconnected. We don't have that access to that information. And at NITA, we are spearheading the digitization agenda in Uganda. We have currently rolled out fiber optic cable to about 49 districts in the whole of Uganda. That is as per financial year 2019. We intend to roll out to all the districts in Uganda and access to the fiber cable all the way to the sub-counties. That's for the next phase of the NBI. That's phase 5. We are currently rolling out the last mile connection. We intend to connect 700 sites, 700 MDAs, that's the ministries, departments, and agencies. But onto that, we realize that the connection that we are doing needs to also reach the new emerging technology. So we'll also be rolling out Wi-Fi technology to about 300 sites, and not just in Kampala. We need to also go out in the rural areas. So the Wi-Fi technology will also bring up more connections onto the network and build that digital footprint of Uganda. In tourism, we looked at the key areas in tourism. We connect ministries, government agencies, but the tourism sector is primarily private. It's a private sector. So what we do is we group the tourist industry as a special target group for connectivity. So we include tourism and a few other sectors within our work that we do at NITA. So we are doing a feasibility study of the tourism parks. We recently surveyed the Queen Elizabeth National Park. we intend to install fiber and wireless at the park. So that's an ongoing project, and hopefully in the last mile connectivity, we'll also be able to achieve that goal in Queen Elizabeth National Park. At NITA, we take a three-pronged approach in the work that we do. We look at the end goal. What do we intend to achieve? What are we looking at in the digital agenda? And we break it down in three parts. First is creating an enabling environment. To enable the technology that we're going to roll out, we need to study, we need to plan, and we draw a blueprint that is going to effectively and efficiently achieve our goal. Then we look at what is the infrastructure needed, what's the best practice out there in the market, and we go with the best practice. That's why we are going with fiber. Third, we look at the services, the e-government services. How do we develop these analog services, analog processes, like one of the speakers mentioned, the e-visas, acquiring an e-visa to come to Uganda. How do we transform that into a digital process? So for the enabling service, we have developed laws, frameworks, and policies to enable us achieve our goal. I'm happy to announce Uganda was ranked the first global cybersecurity ready nation in Africa, second to South Africa. That is one of the achievements that we have managed to achieve in this time that we are at NITA. That gives confidence to the investors and tourists coming to Uganda. We know that our digital environment is ready. The implementation, we are in process of implementing it, but we have all the laws and frameworks to protect the interactions that happen digitally. Second, we go to the infrastructure. How do we roll out our agenda in terms of infrastructure? So we set up, we have set up a national backbone. We have about 4,000 kilometers at the moment. We are the widest, we have the widest penetration in the private and public sector. The telecoms have close to about 4, but we have achieved much more than what the others out there have. On top of that, we plan to roll out about 10,000 kilometers in the next phase of the NBI. So we are going to phase 5. We intend to roll out 10,000. This will connect all districts in Uganda.
Hatwib, when you say NBI, the assumption is everyone knows what NBI is, the National Backbone Infrastructure. Please always let our people know. They say these government people like to use technical language, so we do not get what they're saying, and yet we have these great success stories. So please always remember to let us know what NBI is.
I will. Thank you, Maurice. Yes, the NBI is a National Backbone Infrastructure. It's a nerve channel for the internet connections or the internet communication. It's like a backbone, central nervous system for all the information that travels through the internet. On top of that, once we get that backbone set up, we need now those, like if you have a nervous system, you need the compute power, the brain behind the work that we do. So we are developing, we have currently 2 data centers, but we intend to also expand on that and build 2 more data centers. One will be the national data center, the primary national data center. And we'll have a secondary data center that's going to be out of reach, about 200 kilometers from the primary. And we'll also keep the current 2 as high availability data centers. So for infrastructure, that's what we are working on, and the wireless also is building onto the infrastructure. Then the third and most important aspect of the digitization agenda is the e-government services, or the transformation of that analog information, the spoken word, the print and partially digitized information into a fully digitized environment. And that's through the e-government services. And we are developing, at the moment, we develop websites. We have We have developed websites for the, I believe, for the Uganda Wildlife Authority. We have also developed websites for other agencies that support tourism, like the Uganda Investment Authority, the e-visa service. We are the ones who were at the forefront of that development, and e-payment and integration services that will be supporting tourism in that agenda.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Hatwib. And for those of you who are just joining us, you're watching the Tourism Connect series, and we are discussing tourism infrastructure. And as you heard, NITAU is very critical in this conversation on tourism infrastructure. There was a discussion, Hatwib, and I know you must have followed this because then you were not yet at NITA, when government was requesting for 68 billion to roll out internet into Queen Elizabeth, I think, National Park, to get internet. And there was quite the joke on the internet that why do these elephants need internet? And I think we just didn't get the conversation going, especially those on social media who just didn't understand why we need internet in the parks. But the question I want to ask you, Hatwib, is the cost of that data. So you get the data into the parks. Is it going to be affordable, and is it going to be a good experience? Because it's one thing to have internet, but if it's 2G, it's not helpful. If it's 3G, not so good. But also if it's 4G or 5G, and it's expensive to use, especially if I am traveling into the country, then it becomes a little more difficult and doesn't then answer the question on tourism infrastructure and how to support this tourism sector to market itself as much as we can. A conversation on the cost?
So thank you, Maurice. Yes, the cost is a very, very key factor in adoption of these services, and we currently, our cost is at 700 megabytes per second, but we look at tourism as one of the special interest groups. So we have a preferable costing framework for these special interest groups. It's not what we give to the other
yes, but
players.
Do we see, and because when Elsie was speaking, the impact on the tourism sector in the next 5 years is about 5 billion. And that impact, and by the way, when you said billion, it's not shillings. I think I remember saying this was actually in dollars, $5 billion. Now, if the impact is as such, do we then in the next 5 years see a gradual reduction or even a real dip in the costs of internet in especially this country, in Uganda? Is that something you're seeing? Because right now, the cost of taking fiber into the parks and into the villages and into the communities is high, but do we see a reduction at the end of 5 years and a better experience for the users?
Yes, definitely we will see. When we roll out to more sites, the more that we are connecting, the more that users get onto the backbone, we will have a reduction in the cost. That will cut down a lot of the maintenance costs will not be that high because it's really I'd like to say a well-designed network. So the costs that is going to be the benefits will be much more when the connections are more when they increase.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you. I know you still have some little time here. Let me know when you have to go. Engineer Isaac, let me come to you because listening to Elsie, and she did well in her keynote presentation, speaking about the key road infrastructure, especially to the tourism sites, and how we must prioritize that. Is that something UNRWA is actually looking at?
Well, thank you, Maurice, and the viewers. Indeed, UNRWA, as you may all know, is a government agency that is mandated to develop and maintain the national roads in this country. And these national roads basically carry about 85% of the passenger traffic and freight. In that regard, therefore, roads are an integral part of the tourism system. Now, as UNRWA working with our stakeholders, the critical roads, the primary roads that facilitate tourism have been profiled and identified, and we've prioritized those in the NDP3 for upgrading. Now, the main circuit that is left, because most of the roads have been upgraded, But the main circuit that is remaining is the Kidepo Pale and Piaunte. We have commenced construction of the road that will connect to Napapiripiri where Pian Upe is. The one to Kidepo, we are connecting from Kitigum to Kidepo. From Kitigum to Kidepo, works are going to start very soon. We are also preparing to connect to the Buindi side. That means most of the roads that need to be connected have been prioritized and for implementation. So we think that in the next 5 years, most of these critical sites will be connected by all-weather roads, and tourists will be able to reach the destinations.
I was having this conversation with you, and I've always asked myself, as a tourist, and maybe Bradford at some point will share with us, as a tourist, my experience is to be part of nature. And I don't necessarily think the tourists are asking for a tarmac road all the way to the elephants in Queen Elizabeth National Park. And so, how are you making that experience better for them without necessarily taking tarmac all the way into the park?
Thank you, Maurice, for that question. Indeed, our tourism, as guided by experts, is nature-based. And therefore, we have to do everything possible to preserve nature so that the tourists can have that experience. Now, we are basically guided by experts and the balance of the other priority growth sectors of the economy, which require facilitation of roads. So if you look at an example of Para, we had to take a road through the park because it provides a shorter access to for the West Nile region to the oil city. And therefore, that section through the park had to be tarmac. So we had to balance between tourism, oil, and then agriculture, eventually, and access to the park. If you look at Kidepo, we'll basically take the road up to the gate. Now, the design within the park is going to be different so that we can preserve that nature-based experience for tourists to feel when they come into the country. So the design will vary as guided by experts and also facilitation of the other growth sectors of the economy.
All right. We have, in the last few months, not the last few months, we've had one of the longest rain seasons in this country. And the experience, especially for those who've gone to Kidepo, has been quite difficult. Many have been wondering, how much are we doing to actually open up these parks? Not necessarily take tarmac there, but open them up so that you make the experience better. Because as a tourist, you want them to do a circuit. You want someone to do CP, and then they do Elgon, and then they go to Kidepo and maybe come through Little Gulu into West Nile and come to Murchison and then down. How are we making that experience better for them because of this rainy season that has messed up most of the parks and the roads into the parks?
Yeah, indeed, the country has experienced unprecedented rains during this period, and it's expected to continue. What we've done at Uganda National Roads Authority is basically to prioritize the bottleneck sections. Where there are stream crossings, we fix them. Where there are poor soils, we fix them, so that the road gets motorable during the rainy season. So we've had to roll out what we call framework contracts. These are, we engage contractors on those roads to make sure that maintenance is continuous so that these tourism sites can be accessed as we prepare to tarmac the access roads onto those areas. So that's what we've done, and that's what we will continue to do, so that when, even for local tourism now, that's what we are doing, because the focus now at the moment is to have
domestic tourism. I was just going to ask you a question along that, because we've seen an increase in domestic tourism with different packages offered now, of course, by Uganda Wildlife Authority, but also there's been this initiative amongst Ugandans to go to the parks, at least visit as many sites as possible. I don't know if you're getting feedback, some feelers, in terms of where they found some difficulty in accessing our sites.
Yeah, we've got some feelers, and we checked some of the photos being posted, and we've had to respond, like I said, with these strategies to make sure that those areas are addressed in the short term.
All right. Bradford, maybe later, and again, it's another question that you should be. How much are we sharing with other partners and stakeholders like UNRWA in the potential sites or access to sites that may not be our traditional sites, but new sites that we are seeing relatively good traffic, but are not accessible. I don't know, Bradford, if you want to speak to that a little later. I'll come to Adolfo. Adolfo, you are Uganda's biggest partner on infrastructure development, and we see it every day. When I take the road to my village, I only see the EU. With your support, I've seen the work you've done with UNRWA. How much are you looking at supporting Uganda's infrastructure in getting our tourists to these sites, in particular prioritizing those key roads, key tourism roads, to be able to support the sector?
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, to my fellow panelists and the people that are looking at us. Yes, I mean, infrastructure is very important for tourism. Moving around is key, and the time that it takes to reach the place is very important for, especially for tourism that come from abroad, but I would say also domestic tourism. So I would say that the European Union, just from the past, have been doing a number of roads. I don't know which road you're talking about, but maybe going to Mbarara.
Yes, I knew you had to guess that one.
There are already also ongoing roads that are being built, the bypass, others in different parts of the country. UNRWA is one of our main partners in development, so that is ongoing work, but it's also working in addition to what the government is already doing. I mean, you see the number of roads that have been built in the last years, and especially when we have been moving around to Queen Elizabeth, to Fort Portal, you see what is going on. I mean, you see a lot of new roads, and of course that helps tourism. So that is very important. But in addition to building of roads, and when we talk about tourism infrastructure, finance also play a very important role on that. And let me maybe share what has happened in the last month, because I'm actually happy to be here today. There have been a lot of things happening in the last months, and this year, as we know, all of us, I mean, has been a very special year. COVID-19 has affected the tourism sector in I would say, ways that we couldn't even imagine, because who could imagine in February that the airport was going to be closed from March to October? That is actually the months that more people were going to come to Uganda to visit from abroad. And of course that had effect on cancellations. People were not coming, incomes are not happening. So both hotels and tour operators, they lost a lot of income, but at the same time they had to lay off a lot of people. So people as well, they lost jobs. So the combination of reduction, or I would say actually cancellation of number of visitors, the fact that incomes are not coming in companies, the fact that people are losing jobs, it put us in a very difficult situation. So from the month of May, there have been a number of meetings going on between government of Uganda, different agencies, Ministry of Finance, UTB, Ministry of Tourism, but also associations of hotel association, tour operators, trying to see what can we do about the situation, because companies and hotels and tour operators are the backbone of tourism. And eventually also Uganda Wildlife Authority has been affected very badly, because people don't go to the national parks, so they don't pay money to visit the national parks, so there is no income for Uganda Wildlife Authority. So when you put everything together, the situation has been quite challenging. And from the month of May, we try to find solutions. We have to think about also the fact that even the finance sector, and I think maybe Eva will talk about it later, because she's from the Bankers Association,
yes.
But the financial situation for hotels or tour operators or any other company related to tourism, it has been very difficult in the last months, because banks itself, they were in difficulties. Many of them were facing situations that maybe companies are not going to repay. In many cases also loans, they have to be renegotiated. The Bank of Uganda tried to put these measures in place, but at the same time the banks contracted, so that means that they don't give loans. So imagine a hotel that has loans to pay, but they don't have income. It's very difficult to manage that situation. So after a number of meetings and trying to also take exceptional measures, because this is an exceptional situation, we managed to find a way with the Minister of Finance and also in partnership with the Uganda Development Bank to at least be able to have some capital available for hotels and tour operators, because this is the moment that you have to support these companies. And the Uganda Development Bank put part of the capital into the product for the tourism sector, and then European Union, together in coordination with the Minister of Finance, because these are kind of decisions that we take together, we also agreed to put some money there for a special product that is trying to keep these companies afloat. I mean, it's trying to keep these companies at least managing this period of time that we don't know how long it's going to last for, because it's very difficult to foresee the future.
True.
We don't want this thing to go on and on
Forever?
for years.
Yes.
Because if this go on and on for years, it's going to be a disaster for the tourism sector. But we expect 2021, at least middle of 2021, to change. I mean, something has to change. But from this year to mid of next year and eventually end of the next year, I mean, these companies, they need to have some kind of income. So we came out together with Uganda Development Bank on this kind of product that is trying to support companies to at least be able to pay for salaries, to be able to pay for light, for electricity, for utilities, for running the company, and at the same time be able to sustain some jobs, because a lot of people lost jobs. So this has been now sent out for companies to apply middle of September until the middle of November. 95 companies have applied for that product, and that is the kind of response that we try to do from the financial sector.
All right.
Because we have to combine both infrastructure, financial sector, and supporting the tourism sector.
All right. Thanks, Adolfo. I'll come back to you. I just wanted to get Hatwib's 1 minute before he leaves. I saw him looking at his watch. Hatwib, first of all, for those of you who are not aware, we condole with you at NITA for the loss of your former executive director. Quite a difficult time at NITA, but also amidst this crisis we're in, a lot of you at home and those of us here know at least one or two people who have passed away due to the virus, and so we condole with you and our heartfelt condolences. Okay, your 30 seconds in case you want to share with us anything else NITA is doing to actually improve on the experience of our tourists and develop the tourism infrastructure on the digitization end. Switch on. Yeah, there you go. Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Maurice. In this pandemic, we need to think differently. We need to adjust and adopt to the new way of life, and I think the digital way has really proved its resilience in fighting the pandemic, and also in the recovery process. It has helped a lot. We are providing a lot of support in terms of connectivity and the tools that enable the connections to go through to be supported, like the Zoom licenses. We are providing Zoom licenses to institutes, and I believe also the tourism sector can benefit from those from that support. So with tourism, we know that most of our market is out there. It's across the border, and for us to get to that market, we need to be connected, fully connected, and that's what we intend to do for the nation.
All right, thank you very much, Atu. Feel free at any time to leave for your next assignment. I'll come to Eva. Eva, the Elsie spoke to how digitization through the e-payments as a service, improves the experience of our travelers. And I know, as a Bankers Association, you have been at the center of trying to roll out e-payment systems and e-channels for different transactions, so you can actually provide the perfect backbone to the tourism sector. You want to speak to that? Before I come to what Adolfo shared in terms of restructuring of loans and the different finance, interventions that were provided during, at the beginning of COVID. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Maurice, and all the prior speakers for the background they have provided in terms of the tourism. Now, the banking sector is one of the key players in respect of the ecosystem as it is.
Get the microphone closer to you, so we still can hear, but I wanted it closer. Yes.
All right. Now, the pandemic has so many challenges it has brought into our economy, but it also posed or gave us some opportunity to do things better and faster. We did have a plan or strategy of payments to put into place digital channels and digital ways of paying, including new products, new services, and new outlook. The pandemic kind of placed a bigger challenge for us in March to be able to put those particular plans we had into place to accelerate them and in fact to improve them. And that's one of the key things that the banking sector did to try to increase the level of payments and to spread throughout the country, both rural and urban areas, ways in which people can be able to pay without the need to come into the banking infrastructure, which was then largely affected by lockdowns and all those challenges we had at that particular point. Now in Uganda, you can find lots of ways in which you can be able to pay electronically. So if you're looking at the tourist sector, it's easy for someone now to be able to book for a flight or to pay for a holiday and be able to seamlessly execute that particular payment without a need for failure or for repetition. I think the executive director spoke very eloquently about cyber, which is one of the biggest things or threats as a country would have, because when you're using a card, that's always a very big fear. So if you write it very well, you can see the seamlessness between how you can execute a payment in a safe environment wherever you are in the country. So you can pay by card, you can pay using the internet based on the background or the backbone already into place. So you can see that using different products and using different channels and using different services, we are able then to spread the ability for people to pay both in rural areas and urban areas and settle obligations. Now, I think a key aspect in the banking sector in the last 2-3 years has been the agent banking services. So you can see that in rural areas, you can be able to access a wide variety of services, principally payments, and be able to settle obligations without coming to the branches or without going to the major areas.
So I'll quickly then now take you to what Adolfo was speaking to. The question of, so COVID affected literally everyone, and the financial sector even more, because, with the amount of money that was lent out by the financial institutions, that was going to be difficult for you to collect that money within the COVID lockdown, and of course even now during COVID. And so there was a restructuring model that was guided by Bank of Uganda and of course government as part of the economic stimulus package. You want to speak to that, because most of the people that had actually borrowed money from these financial institutions were in the hospitality industry, and most of it was actually development financing. They were actually upgrading or setting up different tourism sites or lodges or hotels and other hospitality infrastructure.
Okay.
So, yes.
Just before the lockdown, the banking sector, under the guidance or directive of Bank of Uganda, started the process of restructuring loans. And what the banking sector was asking is for all customers to come to us, and this is in due consideration for those who could come, to show interest and indicate their inability to be able to settle loans. So over these particular months, you've seen lots of loans in 2 trillion of shillings which have been restructured in all sectors. Because unfortunately, this is a pandemic which touched and affected all sectors, but there are some which have been impacted more than the others. Taking an example of the tourist sector and the education sector, those ones really ground to a typical halt. Some of them slowed down but are recovering, and you can see the potential for them to be able to settle their obligations later in the year or early 2021. Now, looking at tourism or education, that's going to be a much bigger ask for them in terms of settling their obligations, even when the moratorium ends in March. Now, there's a need for the banking sector, with the support of the regulator, to be able to relook at the uniqueness that exists in the particular sector. Now, tourism is a sector which has more potential into the medium term than it has the actual result now. I'm skeptical that you can't find a hotel or even a game park that can be able to realize its obligations in March next year or June, based on the fact that the industry is going to have a very, very big lagging effect. And looking at what Elsie said, 5 billion loss in 5 years is going to trickle down through the whole sector, as well as all the businesses that support them. Now, looking at the tour or travel or even the education institutes that support the sector, the food suppliers, agriculture, local transport. So there's so many of them who are going to be affected because tourism is the bedrock of their business. So there's a need to do two things: to relook at the uniqueness of the various players in the ecosystem, and to be able to look at longer term financing to support the ones who are affected longer term. And what's strange here or unique is the support has got to be based more on potential into the medium term than the potential that's going to be realized within a month, 2 or 3. So the banking sector has got to look at things in a unique way and be able to fracture out the uniqueness to be able to deliver solutions which are appropriate into the medium term, based more on potential of what will happen, both based on the past but also the potential in Uganda. I think the first piece, I think Bradford spoke a lot about improvements or changes which are going to happen to make the industry really take the place it should be able to take. So the outlook has got to be into the potential of the industry, the potential of the businesses, but also the recovery period, which is going to be lagged more so in this sector than the others, which are starting to come up already.
All right, and Jean, I'll probably come to you at some point, because you're the Uganda Hotel Owners Association is literally struggling to repay some of its debt during this period because of the impact of COVID. But I wanted to also share some numbers, and Eva was saying this, and I know Adolfo spoke to this. According to the Bank of Uganda, debit and credit card payments grew by, it's unbelievable, 349% in the last 12 months of up to June 2020. Now, the total value of card transactions was 3.2 trillion shillings for financial year 1920. From only 724 billion the previous financial year 18-19. So Eva, speaking to what exactly COVID has done, and this is just 6 months of COVID, this captures only 6 months, we probably will see much more, of course lesser transactions because of COVID, but much more transactions on our debit and credit cards. We are literally going and COVID has taught us that. Are we as a financial institution ready for that kind of what do you call it, interest by the general public in going card? We have decided we don't want to touch the cash anymore.
I think I can say yes, and it's a very exciting transition at this particular point. When you look at digitization of technology, it has been running a lot faster than a lot of countries in the developing world. We find now that we really are also starting to accelerate. It's very exciting when you have people transacting and completing all transactions away from particular institutions. It's much more convenient, it's much safer in the environment in which we are. But also it gives people different opportunities than the need to always transact in one particular mode. Now, lots of people were locked into a particular way. I'll go to the ATM or the bank, get cash and transact. That's not the case anymore. And by their changing their behavior consistently, it's going to help us in terms of how we manage as well as the cost of operations. It's a lot more expensive, but also a lot less seamless when you transact person to person. I need to get out of my house, but now it's a lot more. It's easier. But other than the card, you'll find apps. You'll find that we're using apps for USSD phones. So you don't need a smart app. You'll find that you can be able to
mobile money.
Internet.
Yes.
You can be able to transfer into mobile money. You can be able to do payments and get access to. So that's easing the way we do things. So it's speaking to
and mobile banking. Yes, but I wanted to find out in terms of rollout. So because we're talking tourism. And in fact, in terms of rollout, for us to be able to make sure we have the best experience for our tourists at the different sites. How much have we done in rolling out these services to these sites? Whether it's the pay system and the cards and whatever it is you want to set up at the different tourism sites.
Okay, you'll find that those payments, the number of card payments that are increasing, are based on the backbone of having more agents or more merchants who have the terminals to be able to accept those particular payments. So the number of merchants has grown significantly, but also their transactability and seamlessness is much better. So if you go to a merchant, a failed transaction is not a common thing now than it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes.
But more than the merchant, you find we have lots of agents as well who are supporting the payments as well. Because
yes, go on.
Sorry, just one more point. Because whilst we look at the tourists themselves, you have to look also at the payments for the people in the ecosystem who are supporting the tourism sector, such as it is.
All right.
So they can pay with card, they can pay with apps, they can pay with their phones, they can pay through agents. So that whole payment system is enabling both the sector itself, but also all the key suppliers or service providers into the tourist sector.
All right, so I wanted to get the mobile microphone. So just in case, if I could get that mobile microphone, I want both, Bradford and Jean to come in. So if you could give Bradford the microphone. Bradford, I really want you to speak to the initial issues we were speaking to, that harmonization of your sites with the infrastructure development partners like UNRWA, and of course the other stakeholders in the industry, and much more. So please feel free to answer most of the issues I had raised with you. Microphone to Bradford, and then I'll ask Jean to speak to financing, and also feel free to talk to infrastructure, especially with the road network into the parks. Please come in front here. We are sanitizing the microphone, Bradford. So we are taking the SOPs seriously. Here. There you go.
Thank you.
It's on. It's okay. You can hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Maurice, and really I want to thank the panelists as well, and also specifically UNRWA. Really, I want to say this, that I think we are a lot better now going forward with NDP 3. Because if you look at NDP 3, they have actually prioritized infrastructure, more so to do with those that really facilitate tourism development. And to this effect, they have put in place, I would call it a structure, what we call the Tourism Development Implementation Committee. These are lead agencies. They are almost close to over 30 of such agencies. You have UNRWA, you have Ministry of Works, you have Ministry of ICT, you have all these institutions that intervene with the tourism space. Meaning that moving forward, we harmonize our resources, we harmonize our planning, we harmonize our statistics, and then see how best some of these can be prioritized. So definitely we have the tourism roads that have been already isolated, identified, and periodically under review. Yeah, this also at the level of the Ministry of Works, but also at the district level, the Ministry of Local Government to see, and also with the UNRWA. So I think viewers and listeners, in the next 5 years, I think it's going to be a well-coordinated approach, and then where we also want to put all the stakeholders to task to see exactly what have you done, what are the resources that are at the disposal of some of these infrastructure needs, and periodically these 35 plus agencies sit and then review actually our coordinated approach. So I think as UTB, as tourism, we are really happy that unlike in the past where it's like doing a favor to the sector, I think we are now seeing this as really a commitment on the parts of all these agencies to see. It may not now be then UTB or Minister of Tourism to talk about the roads. All the other stakeholders can actually put whoever is in charge with the money and also with the staffing task to show exactly how much have you given towards the tourism routes, how much have you given towards all these kilometers of NBI, the National Backbone Infrastructure. So Maurice, it's only going to be better. I think I'm happy that really this framework is going to work, and already we have started meeting with all the plans, reviewing plans and also reviewing reports. So yes, we're happy moving forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Bradford. I wouldn't disagree with you, because it looks like going forward, the sector literally will be on takeoff mode, because, I mean, Uganda Airlines and the experience that brings on board, the different projects that the EU is supporting with infrastructure, what UNRWA, the current projects UNRWA is working on, and what the banking sector is doing to ensure a seamless experience for our tourists. So I want Jean, who is Executive Director of Uganda Hotel Owners Association, to share what would be what's been under the tourism infrastructure component. What would have been your challenges during this period, and how you'd want us to address them?
Thank you, Maurice. I'm glad that we have the Bankers Association here, because the first and the biggest challenge we had during COVID was the failure of most of the properties to repay loans. I know that we had very many meetings with the representatives from the Bankers Association, with Ministry of Finance, and one of the things that the bank said is that they were going to give us some sort of relief for about 3 months, so that they could be able, especially during the lockdown months when there was literally no business, so that the people could be able to get back on their feet and pay back. Now, unfortunately, this seemed to be worse than the situation before, because when people went to renegotiate their loans, they were told that, yes, we can give you a 3 months reprieve, but then after that, the interest rate goes higher, because the bank said, for us, we are here to make business. You have to pay back this money, which is understandable. One of the things we realize that there is a very big disconnect between the two sectors. The banks don't understand tourism, how the tourism business works, because one of the things we said is that for us, our business is closed. So even if you give me 3 months, 6 months, I'm still going to remain worse than I was. So I do not have the capacity to pay back as I was paying back. The banks didn't understand this, because you also have your targets. So that mismatch has greatly affected the industry, because very many hotels right now are in foreclosure. Many of them are already being sold. Many of them don't even think they're going to be able to make it back out of the pandemic. The only tangible reprieve that we got from the financial sector was the stimulus package from UDB and the EU. So my question to you is it still possible to come to the table, especially with the tourism industry, to see how we can be able to restructure the loans in a fair way that takes into consideration the nature of our business? We have got peak months, we've got off-peak months, and now with COVID-19, it has basically been an off-peak season. If I can give you an example, for a hotel to break even, it must operate at a minimum of 40%. During lockdown, I think even Serena was at 0%. Right now, hotels are operating at less than 10% in the entire country, meaning that the majority of the hotels, if not 99% of the hotels, do not have the ability to be able to meet their loan obligations. And the restructuring process do not take into consideration the nature of the hotel business, the nature of the tourism business. So my first question to you is there a way that this can be looked into? Is there still room for us to come to the negotiation table and negotiate and see how we can be able to help these businesses? Because for a hotel to close, for a hotel to be sold, it still does not help the bank, because you will still not be able to get the business that you are getting from that. In regards to the tourism roads, with UNRWA, first of all, we are very grateful. I know I have had an opportunity to travel more now during domestic tourism since the closure of the airport, and we have seen that the roads up country are really good. But there is need for us to pay special attention to the tourism roads. In Buindi, we see this every single day on social media, on TV. We are seeing it now during the campaigns, how the roads, especially in those key tourism areas, have either been neglected or have not been given priority. I know this was one of the top 5 things that we actually discussed at the Presidential Investors Roundtable, and we haven't yet gotten a lot of traction in that regard. Tourism roads, the roads in Bwindi, it is something that is very important for us to look at, especially now that the tourism industry is going to be on its knees for the next 5 years. We're going to lose about $5 billion over the next 5 years. So we are looking at domestic tourism, and domestic tourism starts with us, and we really need UNRA to take special consideration of the tourism roads. Thank you.
All right. As I said, I expected Jean, who is a user of your services and is in the sector, to bring out that. But I wanted, before I come to both of you, I wanted to begin with Adolfo. Adolfo, Elsie spoke to something that tickled me, and I know you do some work on renewable energy and financing the different solar projects around the country, and also, developing, or at least supporting, the new development of new ways of using other sources of energy, especially renewable energy. You want to speak to that and why it's very critical that we support that in the tourism sector as an enabler for the sector? Yes.
Do you mind I remove the...
Yes, please, feel free. Yeah. You are safe.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And I actually, when I was speaking before, I actually wanted to give some examples as well from our own experience, meaning that when we're talking about tourism infrastructure, we're looking at a combination of things. We're looking at roads, we're looking at energy, we're looking at access to finance, because without finance there is no way to invest. And it's not only about having good roads. I mean, you have to have a road to take you somewhere. I mean, to take you to a nice hotel, or to take you to a nice place. So you need to combine both roads, energy. If you don't have a hotel that has good access to energy, then what is the purpose of having that? But I wanted to share with you, and this is more looking at the future, because we are talking about the situation now, but this situation is not going to last forever. It's impossible. I mean, we have to start thinking about what is going to happen in the next years. Some data is talking about 5 years to recover from where Uganda was, because Uganda was already growing. I mean, sometimes I hear that 2020 was going to be a bumper harvest for tourism. It was going to be the best year. But now it's not going to be the best year. It's not going to be a year that it brings back to the tourism industry many years behind. So maybe we'll recover in 5 years. So we need to start thinking about that. And you see, in my own country, in Spain, in the 80s, we were a country that we didn't have so many tourism. We didn't have tourists coming from abroad. We joined the European Union in 1986, the same year that the president became president in Uganda. But so we became the part of the European Union in 1986. And being part of the European Union, that got us to have some support from what you can call here in Uganda development partners. We got support from the union, but we got support from the union in many different ways. We got money to have roads. We got support to improve the financial sector so that different private sector can invest in hotels and tourism. Government got money as well to improve the cultural sites. We got money for airports. I mean, Elsie spoke about airports. There are some plans also in Uganda to have different airports around the world. And we also got money to improve the access to energy. So when you put all those things together, that is what is maybe called hardware. But you also combine with software. You also combine with skills training for people. You improve their skills on hospitality. You improve their skills on how to treat customers. And that started in Spain in 1986, actually. I mean, around those years, in the 80s. Now, 34 years later, then we can say that Spain is the second country in the world with more visitors. Well, at least it was before COVID-19. But we changed. I mean, our economy changed. Tourism became 12% of GDP. Millions of people got jobs, you know. So we got to that point, thanks also to the support of who already had that knowledge or who had already the resources to do that. And I see something similar could happen in Uganda. I mean, it has happened already. You see the evolution of number of tourism from the 90s and the beginning of 2000s. It has grown. In the last years, there have been improvements in roads, there have been improvements in investments. People have taken their own risks to build lodges around the country, everywhere. And you can also combine nature, adventure with culture, because you have a lot of culture. You have a lot of different kingdoms that combine with the nature, it can happen. So, looking at the future, I mean, I think that we have to look at it in a positive way, because this is going to come back for sure. And the combination of international tourism that is interested in coming to Uganda because you have the products, and the combination also with domestic tourism, people start getting now more and more interested in going around and visiting upcountry. So tourism infrastructure is a combination of all those things. It's a combination of roads, energy, access to finance for the people to be able to invest. It's a combination of also respecting and investing in your own culture and creating those products for the people to visit. And it's also support to the people to get the skills on the tourism sector. So I would say that looking at the future from our side, I mean, we look at it in a positive way, because you have the product, you have the interest, you have already the efforts that you have done in the last years. Yes.
Thank you, Adolfo. I'll come to Engineer Isaac. I have the question around harnessing new transport models, and I know you're also responsible for transport on the waters, especially the ferries. And these ferries, some of these ferry services are actually leading into tourist sites, including the fact that the experience on the ferries is actually a tourism experience, even for our locals. How much are we doing to develop these new transport experiences so that these sites are easily accessible, but also you're making it quite the best experience with a perfect ferry service and other related transport systems? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think let me first clarify and agree with the EDUTB that under the National Development Plan 3, coordination of tourism infrastructure is actually much better, because NDP3 created a platform of the Tourism Development Program, where all these tourist attraction sites are discussed, and we get to know most of them. And we've been able to discover a lot more that need to be connected. Digo vya Mugenyi, is it Nyero Hills, and then Fort Patiko, all those were not included in our program, but we were able to get it under this program. So coordination has gotten a little bit better. Also in the National Development Plan 3, we now have the transport services where we are promoting the intermodal modes of transport. All facilities like the ferries, airlines, and so on are being discussed in a holistic manner, that we don't take only the roads, but then the aerodromes and the airport need to be fixed. And then the water transport also is dealt with. So under that, for us as national roads, we do ferries that connect one part of the road to the other, but then the Ministry of Works does the general development of the water transport system in the country, and that is being focused and developed in a very integrated way under the National Development Plan 3. So there are efforts to do that balance. But I need to add that the roads enable us make the last mile.
Yes, I was about to
access.
Yes, I was about to ask.
Airports.
Yes, there's a need to provide evacuation. I mean, not evacuation in a bad way, but the last mile. If I land by the airport, I must get onto a vehicle. If I come by ferry or whatever it is, I must get onto a road. So if I come by rail, I still must get this container off onto the road. So you literally offer the last mile.
Yes, so we offer the last mile, and roads basically provide the backbone of the transport infrastructure in this country, because we provide, first of all, access to ports, to airports and railway stations and other places of national interest, including the tourism sites. But also we provide mobility. We connect people driving from one point to the other where the other services are not there. So even in developed countries where there is developed multimodal system, roads still take a share of more than 60% of passenger and freight transport within those countries. So we don't expect the situation to change, and that's why government still has to continue focusing on the road infrastructure in the country to spur economic development.
In your strategic plans, are tourism roads a priority? I'm asking Bradford's question. I'm sure that's what he would have asked you. I'm being selfish a bit. Go ahead.
Tourism roads are basically very they are priority in our planning, because the Vision 2040, the National Development Plan 3, identify tourism as one of the areas that have very great multiplier effect to the economy. And therefore, for us as national roads, we have to provide that support so that we can harness those multiplier effects to the economy through good roads. I must say that we have a very good network now that provide access to the tourism zones. If you are going to the southwestern zone, you can access it on a very good road. If you are going to the Rwenzori, you can have good access. What we are focusing on now in NDP3 is access to the tourism sites now. To Buindi, like the chairperson of the Hotel Owners Association has said, to Kidepo and so on. And that is being addressed under NDP3. It has so many roads and bridges and ferry interventions that are expected to improve access to those tourism sites and definitely facilitate the growth of the sector as envisaged in the National Development Plan 3 and then the Vision 2040.
All right, that's exciting, because the question which is related to that, and you don't have to answer, was that the new developments around tourism roads, what the forecasts in terms of kilometers to be covered over the next few years. But you've spoken to not just the roads, it's a linkage and the services offered to get, from one place to the other. Eva, you listen to Jean, and Jean is really very specific on where they need some interventions. But there's also a direct question to you here on interest rates and the role UBA can help in trying to address the issue of interest rates, and what the commercial banks are doing to support the sector, especially in the wake of COVID. You spoke to some of this, but the question and conversation around interest rates has become a bit emotional. I don't know if UBA sees where we are and feels the same way as we feel.
All right, thank you, Maurice. Let me start by just speaking to what Jean raised. Now, we hear and understand what the tourist sector is facing. And we know that the tourist sector ground to a halt. It did not slow down, it stopped. The restructures done up to end of March are done under the guidance of the regulator. Jean has asked, you've asked us a question, are we ready, are we able, are we willing? We really are. Our understanding of the tourist sector is based on what we have seen so far. Our understanding has got to evolve and change in light of where we are going. Your point is so right that we need to sit down together and understand and have a conversation that can enable us to be able to provide the support that is required for the industry to be able to start galloping. Now, potential can be realized. I think based on what everyone is saying, there's no doubt that the potential of the tourist industry will come alive. But we've got to support it in different ways. And in the development of the financial sector, the bank is a key player, but there's so many other people who have to come together. I think you spoke about the development bank, you spoke about there are lots of different ways we can support. We've got to get together with the tourist industry and understand, but even in that industry is the uniqueness of the different owners and the different businesses, even in the industry. Now, when you speak about hotel owners, their needs are different and unique, as well as what sort of service we can be able to offer. Now, the overlying or the overarching requirement now, or biggest problem now, is loans. But there are so many others that have different unique needs and services. So our understanding, we need to get together to be able to change our mindset and understand the tourist industry, understand what we can do in totality, and start the steps to be able to support them in their development. Because we must support that revival of the industry and its sustainability into the future, because they will get there, but they need us to get together, and we need to be able to work with them because they're also integral and important for our banking business as well. So that's what we must do. So a call for us to sit together to be able to find solutions, to be able to do things which are sustainable. You raised the point of no one can buy a hotel now in Uganda. I very much doubt someone can, unless it's really a steal. So that's not the way we really wants to go. We're trying to look at ways in which we can work together to sustain ourselves, to sustain the industry, to help it to start again, and then to be able to start galloping or accelerating to where it can be. So to your question, the answer is yes.
All right. The interest rate question?
Yes.
That one, if you left it, they wouldn't allow me to leave this podium.
And I very much doubt I would be left to walk off this panel without raising it. There was a very interesting discussion last week. I think it was anchored by the World Bank or EU about what drives the cost of banking. And it clarified a lot of reasons as to what underlies the cost of banking. I think before that discussion, there was always that inherent belief that there was a lot of markup or a lot of large margins and that kind of thing. And then it spoke to, I think, in terms of clarity, is what drives the interest rates and what is the challenge for us as a banking industry to try to manage in order to be able to manage the interest rates down. So there are lots of things that were discussed, and there are lots of markers or reasons why. It's an important question, which is one of the focus areas for the banking industry, to be able to do certain things systematically and make certain changes to be able to consistently bring the interest rates down. Because when we're taking a drop down, I think early in the year, mid-year, there was a call by Bank of Uganda for all banks to be able to drop the interest rates. There was a response in terms of dropping. The commercial banks did drop their interest rates as well as the tier 2 and tier 3.
It wasn't measurable to the CBR. That is where our biggest challenge was, that the CBR had actually drastically dropped, but the interest rates were just not coming down as fast.
There's a uniqueness of banking industry, of the supervised financial institutions, and what underlies their operating model. So whilst some were accelerating down, some were not able to drop their interest rates significantly or at a faster rate. Now, that's what we're looking at. What can we do that can be systematically applied by the industry, that while someone can drop at 100 basis points, someone else can drop at 75, but at least to be able to consistently go down. So to your question, it's one of the questions we're looking at, to find ways in which we can consistently be able to do that.
All right. I mean, if you're just joining us, this is part of our Tourism Connect series. And I want Adolfo to speak to this because he's, at the EU, he is also responsible for finance. But I wanted just to, you may be wondering, what's the conversation around interest rates and tourism infrastructure? Well, Jean spoke very well about the fact that there is no single tourism investment right now that hasn't actually tapped into the finances in the financial sector and borrowed money to expand or actually upgrade their business. So, I mean, it makes sense on what sort of interest rate they're able to borrow their money from. And speaking to what Adolfo said, as an intervention during COVID, they did put some money in UDB. And that was, of course, to support the tourism sector. However, many would say, and this is where I wanted you to come in, that we are still not where the tourism sector should be. They're looking at borrowing in single-digit interest. And I don't know whether that is something you've been speaking to.
Yeah, thank you very much. Talking on the interest rates, I mean, it's one of the main issues that we have been looking at not just in COVID. I mean, even before COVID. I mean, during the last years, and we're trying to support access to finance for the private sector, SMEs or even bigger companies. The interest rates always come there. And there have been a number of studies conducted by the Bank of Uganda. Uganda Bankers Association also has raised the issue in a number of times. The reality is that Uganda is a country that has interest rate spread that is very high, one of the highest in East Africa. Interest rate spread means the difference between the money that you get when you put money in a deposit in a bank. They give you, let's say, 3, 4, 5%, and then how much they charge you when you get a loan. That sometimes it comes up to 20-something%. So there are a number of drivers for that. One of them is the operation cost of the bank, but also when you lend, you have a risk. You have a problem when you are supposed to go to court to get that money back, and then you don't get the money. Then you have to have a provision for that. So all those things add to the cost of lending, and there are reasons for that. In addition, we know as well that commercial banks in Uganda they have a substantial amount of their business is to fund the government. and the government and the T-bills have a price. So companies are competing with that money. I mean, if a bank lends to the government at, let's say, 11%, it has to lend to the private sector at a higher rate, because it's more risky to lend to the private sector than to lend to the government. So, you know, there are a number of factors that influence that, and it's something that is not simple to change, at least in the short term. I know that government is working on addressing those issues. We also try to support the government on those issues, but it's something that we cannot expect being changed in the short term. But of course, there are things that can be done to allow more capital to flow into the private sector, to decrease the risk of those lendings, and eventually that will also affect the interest rate. So, for example, a creation of a guarantee fund that guarantee those lendings, and there have been also in different sectors efforts from the government, like the agricultural credit facility in the agribusiness sector. So we're working on that. But the interest rate, the fact that it's high is not easy to solve, at least in the short term.
All right. Ivan, speaking to where you said the perception out there is that the banks have these huge margins, profit margins, is based on what we see they publish in the papers. But we also know they are a business. So if a business, which is a bank, is registering record profit, growth, not just profit, but growth in their profit numbers, then Ugandans are wondering, how is this a relationship between the bank and the banker? There's a disparity there. But I really want to bring this conversation to a close, and I'm going to come back to you for your takeaway. And as we do that, I want to prepare Bradford, who is also going to share his closing remarks. There was a question here, Bradford, on UTB's role in the development of tourism infrastructure. So if you can speak to that in your closing remarks also, that would be interesting. So I will begin with Eva. Your takeaway from this conversation, because tourism infrastructure is critical in making, in providing a great experience for our tourists, both domestic and foreign. Your takeaway.
My key takeaway is that all the key players have got to rethink. And I think Elsie emphasized the point. We've got to rethink about the future of the tourist sector and rethinking actions in terms of finding real solutions to be able to assist the different players directly in the industry as well as the ecosystem. We've got to think about sustainable growth. We spoke about now about growth. 2020 will not be a growth sector for practically the whole world except a few unique industries. So when you're thinking about being relevant in Uganda as a banking industry, as well as the sustainability of all key sectors, and in this discussion it's tourism, we've got to rethink what we know and rethink about what we see in banking today, but also the future. I guess banking is usually looking at what we see now and what we see in the intermediate future. With tourism, is supposed to be the thought now, but more in a longer term, because we're speaking 4 or 5 years. If she spoke about 10%, 40% will come in 2021 or 2022. So our assistance today cannot be based on 10%. It's going to be based on the 60% or 40%, which puts them into the profit margin. So we've got to focus on the ecosystem, support the development and sustainability of all the businesses that support tourism, as we must support the tourism sector, and make changes to be more relevant, have the conversations about what sort of products must we do, focus on norms, but also the whole value chain, such that we can support payments, services, accessibility, seamlessness, security, and all aspects to make sure that the sector can be able to come up. Then the sector can also understand banking better, make better choices for themselves, decide the right products and services wherever they are located. So it's the whole linkage that will trickle down by the kind of solutions we must put into place.
All right, Engineer Isaac.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maurice. I think what I can say is that I want to assure all the stakeholders in the tourism development program that UNRWA is committed to fast track the development of the primary tourism network. Government, in particular, including Minister of Finance, is doing all it can during these very difficult circumstances where resources are allocated towards fight of the COVID-19. is trying to get us funds to actually fix the roads to Buindi, fix the roads to Kidepo, and that is process that is on, because they have told us, please go ahead, we'll avail you funds to have these roads fixed so that we can support the development of the tourism sector. So my assurance is that we are really committed to fast-tracking the development of that primary road network that supports the tourism development program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Adolfo?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to come to this, actually, because it's something that we are very passionate about. We have been working in the last years about it. As we have been discussing, I mean, Uganda has done enormous progress on tourism infrastructure, roads. The change in the last years has been incredible. So we should not allow the fact that we are going through this COVID-19 to forget about that. I mean, like sometimes people say in church, this too shall pass. This will pass. This is not going to be there forever. So we have to prepare ourselves for the next years and continue the very good work that we have been doing in terms of building roads, supporting the creation of lodges and hotels, the good work of the Uganda Wildlife Authority on protecting your assets, your very incredible natural resources that we love to see. People like me, we are residents, and we love to keep on going to different places because we don't see these kind of things even in our own countries, you know. So we would like to see this continue, the trend that you had in the last years. And of course, you can rely on us. I mean, the same way that I was sharing what happened in my country. I mean, we are happy to work together with the government, with the private sector, with the hotel association, with the tour operators, share our experience, and we have a number of development partners that they are supporting the sector. The World Bank has a big program. UNDP is as organizers also of this conference. European embassies like Netherlands, Belgium, GIZ, and the European Union, we are all together on this. So we will be happy to continue supporting the development of the tourism sector. That is something that is going to happen.
All right, thank you very much, and I want to thank you, our panel. We're not many in this room. We're the majority of our people are online, so we want to thank you. We'll give you a round of applause to our panel. Adolfo, Isaac, Eva, and of course Hatwib, who had to leave us. So we want to thank you all. You can now take your seats. So ladies and gentlemen, that really wraps our panel discussion this morning. The conversation really was around tourism infrastructure and how much has been done thus far in supporting the different players in the sector, but also how much more is being done by UTB and partners in ensuring that tourists, domestic and foreign, have a great experience when they visit our parks. I now take the pleasure of inviting the Deputy CEO, Uganda Tourism Board, to come and make closing remarks, but also, of course, chip in some of the areas where he has interest. So you're most welcome, Bradford.
Yes, Maurice, again, as a friend of tourism, moderator, really I can't thank you more. You've been with us, and I pray you continue to be with us. So grateful. Yes, as we come to the end of this series, I want to thank everybody that people who have made this very, very practical. And today for this session, I want to thank UNDP greatly, first for making the connection via Tourism Connect possible. I think for the 3 days, the support has been from UNDP, and we continue to work together to make this possible. From our partners institution, UNRWA, Isaac, thank you so much. You've given us assurance that the zones are well covered for now. I think what is now remaining are the sites, and still some sites are, of course, they are accessible. We are happy. They can only be better and better. Of course, to the debunking group for our session. I want to thank him as well for being part of this session. Definitely, banks, we need to show that we are competitive, we can borrow, we can pay back, and we can use banks' money to invest. Short of that, I think then we cannot make profits and we cannot expand our tourism base. So we want to thank Banking Association, but of course the government in general for really making this possible. Of course, to EU came at a point when really tourism was feeling it hard. Therefore, we want to thank you so much for really working with us every time. I remember all the so many meetings that we've been holding, asking tough questions both to EU and also to UDB. But finally, of course, we had something that could work for both the union, for the bank, and also to the private sector. And of course, I also want to thank Nita for being part of this. The promise has been great that, of course, under phase 5, we are going to have over 10,000 kilometers of NBI. And of course, our challenge now is the last bit. The last mile normally is our biggest challenge. How do we tap to the premises, to the tourism sites, to the MDAs, to those who want to use them? We are so grateful. Of course, Jean, thank you for being physically present. I know you've been more interested than actually the tourism sector put together, especially making sure that the hoteliers get something, the hospitality industry gets something. Let's continue to work together. The feedback we get from you would help us really improve greatly the tourism space. Thank you so much. Let's be in this together. Yes, for UTB, we are the regulator, we are the marketeer. Yeah, we market the product, tourism, but these products really should be disaggregated. As you know, tourism is everywhere. When you talk of a country of 145 districts plus, and you also need to know that there are many products therein. If you take all the way from Kasese to the central here to Karamoja, Alayon said that we are the most diverse country in the world. 65 plus tribes. Yeah, you can't get that on the continent of Africa. But we live in harmony, meaning that we also present a lot of opportunities, a lot of products that we can actually market. Now, the intervening factor now is the infrastructure. How do we access some of these products? I think that's how we come in as UTB. We come in as UTB to ensure that these products are marketed, and in marketing, making sure that the products are actually competitive. So the infrastructure plays a very leading role in ensuring that we access this. So as UTB, we may not have direct role in the physical development of the infrastructure, like putting money to develop sites, because we don't own some of these sites or any of these sites. But for us to market a product, that product must be ready. Yeah, that product belongs somewhere, and it takes a lot of interveners. As I mentioned earlier on, within the NDP3 approach and methodology, we have over 35 agencies, they call them lead agencies, that work together to see how the tourism sector can be developed. So as UTB, we are there really to advocate, to bring out some of the challenges that we get within the tourism sector, so that the products they are in can actually be marketed. We don't put money directly into roads, we don't put money directly into a product for development, but we make sure that these sites are safe, these sites are secure, these sites are attractive, these sites have standards, so that when you get in and get out, you are happy, and you eventually become actually an advocate of the part of Africa. So we, as a board, definitely we have a big role to make sure that if there are stakeholders who need to have these sites or this marketing happen, then we work with them closely. And that's why we are part of the Tourism Connect. We brought this to make sure that you bring all your issues, bring all your views, and then you put this into context, and see exactly how best this can be solved or whatever. Of course, it requires money, requires a lot of money, but of course, this money we need to justify. You need to see that there's return on this money, and this can only be possible when you demonstrate that, yes, we are earning enough, that in the long run should actually pay back some of this investment that we put in. So, viewers, members, and partners, I want to say that as UTB, we are grateful. Let's work together. Let's look forward to seeing that the Pearl of Africa is inviting, the Pearl of Africa is competitive, the Pearl of Africa is marketable. I think that's the message that we want to bring to you now. It's just starting now. It's not that maybe after 5 years this can be solved. After 5 years, there are many things. Of course, with the emerging issues that come, we continue to improve and improve and improve. So once again, I'm very, very happy, and I pray that we continue to move together, and let's look forward to travel as we go towards the festive season. Yes, I know safety is paramount, health safety is paramount, but I'm very confident that the tourism sites are very, very secure. SOPs are in place, so please go and visit the Pearl of Africa. From UTB, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when times come. Thank you. Thank you so much. Maurice.
Thank you, sir. All right, so Bradford literally has closed this 3-day series. It's been quite exciting, a conversation that started with sustainable tourism development and is ending with tourism infrastructure. Quite an exciting period for the tourism sector as we begin seeing some sense of recovery. Which, as Adolfo and all the panelists have been saying even since Wednesday, is that it will take maybe 5 years for us to go back to where we were. I think Bradford, looking at some of the numbers last year, there was a figure being thrown around of about 1.9 million visitors for the other year, 2019. And we were projected probably to do 2.5 or even more this year. And going by what had happened in January and February and the bookings for March, I'll give you an example because I have friends in this hotel. March was actually almost at 100% occupancy for this hotel, which has the biggest number of rooms, this and another. And we had a great G77 conference that was coming in April. And so all that was water under the bridge because of COVID, and we're hoping that 2021 will be better. And so UTB and the different stakeholders in the industry, with the support of UNDP, are ensuring these conversations continue, and so we will continue having these conversations. You are told about the different activities that will be taking place. Of course, the Rwenzori excursion that is already underway with our very own Joshua Cheptegei. And of course, the Take on the Pearl campaign that UTB is undertaking. So we encourage as many Ugandans to visit our sites. In fact, experts are advising that this festive season, you shouldn't go to your village to visit your grandparents because of COVID. They are actually, okay, the experts are not recommending. UTB and myself are recommending you visit the tourism sites. Don't go home, visit the tourism sites. Let's support the industry during this period and stay away from our grandparents and those people that we want to protect in this period. Again, the MTV African Music Awards, February 20th, 2021. Looking forward to that. Continue using the hashtag Mamas or MTV Mamas here in Uganda. And thanks for the voting that is already underway for the Ugandan artists. And also, Ura says you can see the gorillas at 150,000. Somebody on Facebook, Richard, was asking, is it per person? Yes, it's 150,000 per person. Richard, to directly answer you, it was 300,000 per person. So for you to pay 150,000, that's a 50% discount. And that is only on for 4 months. I think it ends in March 2021. So please, let's visit the gorillas. I personally will visit the gorillas early next year, and I'm looking forward to that. And UTB and UNDP continues to say stay safe during this period. Let's continue to observe the SOPs as we live during these difficult times. So we want to thank you, our online audience, and all of you who joined us, and our physical audience here. Those of you watching on TV at home, on MTV and UBC, we thank you so much. Continue using the hashtag TourismConnectUG if you want to share with us for any feedback or follow-up. And also now want to welcome you to watch this video, a special on Uganda's tourism. And this can't just be a conversation. We must also show you what Uganda has to offer. So we'll now hand you over to this video that will mark the end of this very morning breakfast and our tourism series this week. Thank you very much, and God bless.
The Taxpayers Appreciation Season is here! We recognize, celebrate and award Uganda's top taxpayers. Be part of the first online Bombaya Business Summits and stand the chance to win smartphones, gift sets, hampers and loads more. Visit our social media pages to find out more.
We appreciate you for paying your taxes. We're proud to be Ugandan.
We celebrate you.
Oh, we celebrate you.
Taxpayers of Uganda. We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Dear children, this is Auntie Jovita, your friend, your mentor, and your mother. During this lockdown, many people have come up with different projects that have kept them busy, and this could be one of the projects you do for yourselves. You can have rabbits, rare chicken, and by the end of the lockdown, you have the project of your own under your name. You could ask for sponsorship or for help from mommy, from daddy, from your guardian, or even your savings, because you don't need a lot to start